Here we are. Good evening, Monday night. As you see, we're on a different platform and just trying something a little new, a little different. Usually, we'll have a group or two-way conversation, but this Monday night, I decided to go where I am uncomfortable. Actually, I know it doesn't seem that way, but that's where we are. I invite one of my closest colleagues, sister, Leah Mills Chapman. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Tired, but doing
Yes.
okay.
Yep. Yeah. Tired is the operative word on Monday night, and there's no. It's crazy because you got all of the rest of the week. I don't know what's worse, Monday night or Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday. So I don't know.
I would say Monday, right? Coming off the
Mhm.
weekend, if you had any level of relaxation and then have to be thrust into the work week, yeah, Monday.
Yeah, I also think like because Monday for New Year's was on a Monday, right?
Mm-hmm.
New Year was on a Monday, and then you have Dr. King is on a Monday. So I always use that second holiday to like if I didn't get anything straight the first 15 days, now I got to get the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I got my stuff together, so I was very happy about that.
You
So
better than I am, Gear.
yeah, you're probably better than you are, but you just got nobody. I'll admit some of it has to do with getting my bills paid, right?
Yeah, I get it.
Because I always tell people this. I struggle with the fact that those holidays push back my cash flow just a little bit,
Oh
and
yeah,
yeah, the bills still come. People still want their money. Your vendors and things like that,
exactly.
but the bank is closed, right?
Truth.
And then depending on the check, I'll tease ourselves. When you get big checks, they let out little chunks at a time. It just doesn't clear.
Right.
And then you tell the next man, well, you can't get that Monday. You're gonna get it Tuesday or Wednesday, and it's like, psst,
They're
psst.
not trying to hear that at all.
But nobody paying them anyway, right?
Right.
That's why I mean, if they could do better, I mean, I'm just part of the business that goes on with it. So I've learned that I have to plan accordingly when
Yeah,
as a therapist.
indeed.
So
Mhm. I
so
agree.
so I will just let's start with something that I start with headlines. Some headlines that's going on in the news today. Uh, so I'm going to start with it is be saved a little bit, but at the very top, Dr. King's baby boy died today. Some of your thoughts on that, and and this just is like hot off the presses. Maybe not even 6 hours. So
Yeah,
what's
yeah. That was heartbreaking to receive. I just ended today. And,
hmm
a little pushed out, a little delayed, but
hmm
all MLK, Day events don't necessarily fall on the 15th. And so,
right,
an organization that our spearhead had our MLK celebration today. And
hmm
so afterwards, we were just kind of, debriefing, and so my co-director, she was mentioning, MLK's children and how, one was deceased, and we're
right.
joking around about which child looked like him and whatever, and we were just talking about that.
His granddaughter
Yeah,
looks just like him. I
yeah,
mean, has his mouth.
yeah, yeah,
Baby girl, she has his mouth because now that she's getting older, they have her on TV
yeah,
more
yeah.
often, and they have the little king insignia on, which is really cool. And it's sad, 'cause he's the most recognizable one because he looks like his daddy too.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for
Yeah,
sure. right? That's the one that all would say is just super handsome, and
Mm-hmm.
that is his daddy's child.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it really just kind of took me aback, and then it made me kind of
Mm-hmm.
think about, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. passed, and how the entire country for sure went
Mm-hmm.
into mourning, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine, what that felt like, because I felt a small tinge, a small sense of that, in hearing the passing of his son. So yeah, my heart goes
Well,
out.
yeah, and they had beef also, and I think they kind of squashed that.
Hmm.
Um, now that I'm older,
Yeah,
uh, it's harder, and you and I are talked about as therapists and working hard to be intentional
yeah,
about living longer and resting. So, um, I'm trying not to. I don't even know if you have siblings, but I'm trying not to get into beef with my siblings and my cousins as I get older. And
yeah.
of course, not only they have the legacy, there's money behind that. So I think he was in charge of one of the King Centers. I think there's multiple King Centers, and he
Hmm.
was in charge of
Hmm.
one of those things. So we wish
Yeah,
your family prayers, and those who are fighting prostate cancer, we're hoping that it will be defeated.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
on happier thoughts, let me ask you how you feeling. Motor City, the Pistons not doing well, the Tigers are not doing well.
Okay, Gary, that's not happier thoughts.
No,
You're kind of like,
I'm kind of setting it up.
oh, okay, all right.
I was in the Midwest for a hot second, but man, so at the beginning of the year, you got the Wolverines. Now I know that's your wheelhouse right there, and
Indeed.
and then
Oh,
the lion and
oh,
then the Lions are doing their
now.
thing. So, talk to me. How you feel?
Oh, feeling lovely. Like, it's been a long time coming for both, right? For us
Mm-hmm.
to pull out the championship game with U of M. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I was in the house, Gary, like
Mm-hmm.
got a short little stint on the news because I was just beyond
No,
elated.
how did that happen?
Well, my husband and I was out there in the lobby. Lonnie was
Mhm,
clowning. No, I was actually the one clowning. And the news reporter was coming through with the cameraman and seeing us. We were
mhm,
taking pictures and just having a good time. And he's like, "Hey,
mhm.
would you like to be on the news?" Sure. So yeah,
Yeah,
it just kind of happened like that. It was fun. It was good.
I mean, just to go into that crowd and see some of your fellow alums in there, and they're doing their thing, you
Yeah.
know. So, and
Doing
it's not blue and gold; it's blue and maize,
it's amazing blue. Yes.
maize and blue, right?
Amazing blue.
So, so let me dig into you a little bit. What uh, when did you graduate there, and what you graduated with?
So I actually have 2 degrees from the University of Michigan.
Really? Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, so
So you're a Wolverine
met
times two.
times 2. We
Hmm.
met at Oakwood, but my undergraduate degree is from U of M. Uh,
Really?
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
So I got my bachelor's in psychology and African American studies, and
Hmm.
then my master's in social work. Yeah, clinical social work.
Really? How
Yeah.
about them? There's a lot of us that went to OU
OC.
and OC, right? And then we
Yeah,
went to these prestigious schools
yeah.
on the back end. I mean, I don't mind um, OU the foundations because in my case I ended up at New York University.
Okay.
And it was like, wow, they teach different here.
Shot.
But yeah, but I'm sure in the Midwest, when you say you're a Wolverine, that swings a big stick. Because
It does. It all depends, right?
Mm,
because we still cannot, get past the fact that there is still racism, right?
mm-hmm,
Getting into the institutions and even after you exit doesn't necessarily mean that you will
mm-hmm,
obtain the same level of privilege, right?
mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but is the fight between a Spartan and a Wolverine, is that real?
Oh, it's real. Oh,
Really?
it's real and it's ugly. Yeah.
Huh?
The same way it's a fight between a Wolverine and a Buckeye. I call them a black-eyed pea. I don't know what it is, but yeah,
What?
it's a fight. Mhm.
Yeah, I knew Ohio State and Michigan were big rivals too. And that's that whole Big Ten thing. Even Northwestern has a
Mhm.
little bit has a little bit Indiana and what have you. So
Yeah, the
you know,
Hoosiers. I
so
mean, but it's not like the Spartans and the Buckeyes. I think that is probably, top tier rivalry
I,
status.
I think the only thing Michigan does not have, University of Michigan does not have, is
Mhm.
Magic Johnson as an alum. That's the only thing y'all don't have. I
Right.
mean, they have it. I mean, even the Fab Five. Jawan Howard came back
Mhm.
from heart surgery, and the
Yeah.
Fab Five came back. And I was explaining to my son, even though they've never won a championship, that may be the most famous collegiate basketball team ever,
Ever.
ever.
Mhm. And you see, even still, like when we were talking about whether or not the Block M really does everybody justice, you see what
Mhm.
happened to the Fab Five, right? They stripped them of
Right,
everything, which
right,
was horrific. Yeah.
right, right. It is, and 3 out of the 4. Not to say that the last two didn't do well. 3 out of 4 were really, really in the limelight. And I remember those days. It was something else. So, last thing before we get into what we like to talk about is what gets on your nerve. What got on your nerve this week?
You know what, Gary? And it probably, is along the lines of just a topic very serious.
Hmm.
But looking at the healthcare system and their lack of real, true care and concern uh,
Hmm.
for our elders. My mom's
Hmm.
in rehab right now, and
Hmm.
um, battling these systems and the insurances, all about, right? How our
Hmm.
lovely insurance agencies or companies do what they do. But it was just, disheartening to kind of see how they can see the condition of an individual, of an elder within our community, one that has, worked for years and years and poured into society at large as well as
Hmm.
the economy, paying insurance, bills every month. They're getting right income towards this insurance, and when you truly need it, they give you limited time and
And
they
limited access.
limited access.
Hmm.
And so, we're now looking at trying to transition her from rehab, but she still needs that long-term care. Gary, if you are not wealthy, you cannot
Hmm.
afford to care for your elderly loved one. We're
Hmm.
talking on the low end, and I mean not top tier, assisted
Hmm.
living sorts of spaces. We're talking 5 to 10 grand. And so I was talking
Hmm.
to someone at church this past Sabbath and said, you know what, I need to be able to create, and it's going to be on my list, my to-do list, is to create seminars so that we can, as a people, understand what this looks like for our aging parents and for us. We right around the corner, Gary. We're not too far.
We're here.
Yeah.
It's so funny you said that, and I'm going to piggyback. And it's not a secret because you post what happened, and we don't even talk about this amongst ourselves, right? There's some type of underlying shame, and I'll say this: like the amount of money that we come out of pocket with insurance is shameful.
Yeah.
Because, and I say this with all due respect, and I'm sure you do too, is that I didn't sign on for this. I saw it happen. This is the part of happily ever after that you don't talk about.
You
And
got it.
you don't sit down with your kids and as Nana's going to bed right now, as we see, you
Hmm.
don't sign on for this, and next thing you know is that you got kids, you took care of your kids, right?
Right.
Right. You taking care of Lonnie, I'm taking care of Nilsa, right?
Yeah.
And that in itself has to be solid. And then the next thing you know is, so that's your mother. So Lonnie definitely plays a role that nobody is. So
Yeah.
when Nilsa stays home to take care of mom because she's not going to church, I stay home too
Yeah.
because God knows, what she is. And here's the flip part about it is like I'm glad my parents are alive, but they heading downhill too, right? And
Hmm.
there's three of us, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, and it just seems that as educated as we are, right?
Hmm.
You're a social worker, and I've been in healthcare administration for about 7 to 9 years.
Hmm.
I know most of the loops. They change often, and I still are unable to catch up or give people great advice on how to manage that. And it's
I don't think
crazy.
it's great advice that can be given. I just think that insight
Hmm.
is what, the people need to know.
Hmm.
And it's not until you encroach upon that space of caretaking, that awareness is then given and shared, or even, you don't even just stop to think about it, right? We're looking at
Hmm.
stocks, and people are over here into what was that,
Crypto coin?
crypto, right?
Right. Hmm.
Cryptocurrency and all of these different things. But I'm wondering, in those conversations and where our minds were when we're hearing this information, and we're, investing in certain areas, where we really just thinking about who and where we're going to be in our last days. Who's going to take care
Hmm.
of us?
Yes.
Right? And do
That's
they
so.
have access, and do they have the finances, and will we have the finances, especially those of us who are
Mhm.
going down the path of entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now nobody can pay me and you now,
Yeah.
uh, because
Yeah.
funny. I was thinking about it. Is I'm not going to be anybody's vice president. I'm not going to be anybody's, uh, you know, super coordinator. And the extra money you and I make, uh, probably got to pay an assistant to
Mhm.
help. Because
Yeah.
truly, what happens is that once you make a certain amount of money, right, you kind of like still need to be good. Like, you study a lot and I study a lot, and you just really need to be on it. Like, I'll share with you tonight about the whole grief as we move into that part. It's just like, as a Christian, as an Adventist, it's more than daddy dies or mommy dies and we put them in a mausoleum.
Right.
We have the choir put them in, and then the next thing you know, they're buried and they're gone, and that's it.
Right.
And then when I started doing, they have this fancy word for it. They call it disaster emotional management, disaster something management. That's what we're doing now with the company we signed up with.
Right.
And just tonight, I go and it's a UPS driver, and the two UPS driver, the guy is driving, and they have the other guy in the cab, and they got into an accident, and they're done. They have, as we say in our business, expired.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's two, right? So I walk in. It's not that nobody hates me,
Mhm.
but when you come into a room with men and everybody looks like a football player, right? So let's be factual. There's no women cross country trailer driving
Right.
women, right? They're all men. They're all about our age. They've
Mhm.
made the sacrifice to leave their family.
Right.
And I've been driving with you for the last 12 years.
Mm.
And, you're not allowed to drive over 10 hours. And so you stay within your safety guidelines. And still some fool comes and ends up killing you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you got to process all of that, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about that, Leah, and everybody does such a great job on calling us. It's like, oh, we need a grief counselor right now, but then they got 2 funerals to do, and they don't call us back.
Exactly.
That and there's the initial hurt, there's the memorialization
Yeah,
of what's going on, and
exactly.
then there is the after effect. And as a society, I used to blame our church for this, and rightfully so. We should be better, but society just do a, I'm just gonna say the term, piss poor
It's poor
job
job.
of really healing and trying to throw people away of somebody that loved them. I
Yeah.
mean, your dad has been gone a while, and you have talked to me candidly like, Dad, Gary, sometimes it's like he was here today and he's gone. So
Yeah. 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 It's definitely a difficult reality
mhm,
when we're looking at this thing as, and I often say this, that never was ever supposed to occur. Death was never supposed to be
you always say that.
yeah.
That's why it's so unnatural to the
And that's why
human
it's
being.
so complex, right? And
Right.
complicated because
Mhm,
it goes outside of the confines of what God desired for us as a people. We were
mhm,
supposed to live forever. And
mhm,
so it still, is what his hope and his desire is for us,
mhm,
right? Um,
mhm,
but the reality is that we're still down here, tough works in progress.
mhm,
But it just doesn't register to the psyche. It doesn't. You figure it out as best as you can, but it
mhm,
will creep up when you're not, inviting it to. It will
mhm,
always present itself. And so you're right.
mhm,
It's gonna come. It even comes a lot of times, Gary, before the person dies.
mhm. I believe that.
You begin to grieve before your loved one passes, if right it isn't like something that just kind of happens out of nowhere, such as an
Mhm,
accident. But if it is a loved one that has been ill
mhm,
for some time,
mhm.
yeah, your mind begins to grieve, I think, early.
Well, I haven't written this, and you're probably going to agree with it. I'm probably going to have you write it with me, and we're going to have like some type of, I don't want to say seminar, but
Mm,
reality. But the one thing I've learned about death over the last year, especially working on this project, not only this project, but that death, whether it happens instantaneously
mhm.
or somebody is in hospice, nobody can predict the last breath. No, and it's almost like somebody is still surprised. Gary, you're dying of cancer, and next thing you know, you're taking care of me. Nilsa's taking care of me, and Tony's doing a wonderful job.
Yeah,
And Leah calls every other Thursday, 8 o'clock on the dot. We go back now. We've tied in our professionality, whatever. And then I just goes like, man, I still didn't expect Gary to go. We
mhm,
just like, it's in our DNA to expect people to live forever. A
mhm.
hundred a 100-year-old grandmother dies, and you get offended. It's like, well, she still lives a good life, but you wanted your grandmother, forever,
Exactly. Yeah,
right? So it's death has this thing that it is still unexpected,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's what I have. That's what I have learned. I can't shake it. So sometimes I have to, after like 7 or 8, maybe 12 assignments that I've take, I just kind of like have to throttle down.
yeah,
Be like, it's a
yeah.
it's a lot.
Yeah, even as, clinicians and we're holding space for other people's
Mm,
pain, not necessarily our loved one, right?
right.
But if you care about humanity, death
Mm,
hurts.
mm-hmm,
Any level of exposure, right?
mm-hmm,
You can
mm-hmm,
see people who grew up on certain shows and an individual passes and you feel like somebody in your family died, right? Michael
mm-hmm.
Jackson died. We were all in mourning
Still
for
am.
yeah, yeah.
When they tried, when they tried to say, "Oh boy, was the king of pop," we almost killed. We're gonna stop watching TV. That's yeah.
Mhm. So
You're right, Lee. And I even think about some of our classmates that we
yeah,
went to school with, right?
yeah,
And it's almost like I'll say it when Davon passed, right?
yeah,
Davon was almost like indestructible.
yeah, yeah.
Or when my good friend Stephen Lahing's wife passed,
Mhm.
you know, and I just call him out of the blue, and I think I'm disturbing him, and then he'll say something like, "Man, I'm just glad you called," and then I was just like, "I'm just glad that I'm not disturbing him. That he has a different life." I could never, and you probably could say, "I don't know if I could live without Nelsa," or you could live without Lonnie, right? As much as they get on our nerve in their own way, right? It's
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
it's crazy, man. So it's
Yeah, it's definitely a tough reality. And like you were saying, it's kind of in our DNA um, to want the preservation of life. But I think another part of it too is our faith,
okay.
right? So in the church, we're always taught to have active faith. And so you're praying and you're praying and you're holding on to that for dear life
Mm-hmm.
as like the raft,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that also, you know, complicates things when we're looking at like the 5 stages of grief. We're talking about, the bargaining in
Mm-hmm.
there. I think faith could go.
Mm-hmm.
If you can raise Lazarus from the dead, like, Lord, why are you not doing this for my loved one? And so that makes very, very heavy on the mind, on the psyche yet again, is how do we grapple with death and our relationship with God when we feel that, we were holding on to him for dear life and that he is, the ultimate healer and
Mm-hmm.
is the life giver. And so it's that lack of insight and understanding of knowing why God
Mm-hmm.
decided, right? That
Mm-hmm.
the time it becomes difficult. Yeah.
Everything you said was right. I also wonder, does doctors and healthcare workers toss and turn at night? I mean,
I got
Nilsa has to. Nilsa has come to me and she said that we are professionals, right? So
Mhm.
we've worked with people that has there's just like certain things that sticks out with these extraordinary events. But
Right.
I just some doctors really toss and turn or really stay up at night and go into their medical books and say, well, maybe if I do this and I can do that.
Yeah.
And but I think that's still what gets me as a clinician is like when the good die young
Yeah.
or the good dies untimely.
Yeah.
And I'm still fight with the fact that, well, dang, Trump is still alive. He ain't. I, I,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, yo, who's his doctor?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Who's his doctor? That still gets me at this age, and I'm still looking for answers. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but we have to be honest, our healthcare system is biased, right? There's a reason that we train healthcare professionals on implicit bias, right? Explicit bias and other, areas. And so um, I do believe that they do play a role. And I would say, I could say a lot, Gary, because it's taking me back to, my father's time of being amidst a hospitalization, his final hospitalization.
Mhm.
But fighting with, again, the healthcare systems, and they are fighting against you. And they're
Right.
trying to get your loved ones,
Mhm.
to sign that DNR, that do not resuscitate, as if they
Mhm.
are God and they have the right to take life. And so, in my particular instance, as soon as, and this is kind of where I was going when I say grappling with, God's hand in all of this.
Mhm.
I remember telling my mother, because she was fighting. She was fighting them. She would not sign that DNR to save her life. And I said, Mom, if it was God's will for him to live, he'll live. If it's God's will for Dad to die, he will die. So they came in there with that DNR and she finally signed it. Gary, my father was dead the next morning. Next morning. So
Wow.
when you say, do doctors actually, feel this? I think that many do. I wouldn't say that all within the healthcare system
Mhm.
are out to do harm, right?
Mhm.
I think that it's a part of kind of their Hippocratic oath is to really do no harm, right?
Mhm.
But the reality is that you will come into contact with individuals, those that care, those that will persevere and will do
Mhm.
all that they can, and then there's others
Mhm.
that will go along with the process, right? Your money
Mhm.
is running out, which means you are running out as well, right?
Mhm.
So money and life is concurrent in the healthcare space. But the attending doctor that was handling my father's care, she wept when he died.
Oh, wow. You
And she
know,
wept because she knew my father's brother, and he was present at the time that he died. And I think that's where they connected and it pricked her humanity again.
I like what you said that man, you know who died? I didn't tell you this. My parents' doctor.
Wow. Okay.
Now that now the person who's assigned
Right.
to keeping my parents alive is
Right.
like, oh, yeah, my mother said it all. Matter of fact, well, Doctor So and So is in the hospital. I was like, oh, and I was like, yeah, he'll be all right.
Mhm.
next
Right.
thing,
Right.
right, next thing you know, he's gone, and it just gave me a dose of reality, and it's just like, I, I think I'll say this because talking to you has sprouted so many things in my mind and gives. I think my connection gives a reality of therapists talking. Like, I know when I'm getting depressed,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
After you go through all the telltale signs or whatever, right?
You're
So
right.
my room gets a little bit of clutter,
Mhm.
and I don't feel like getting up in the bed. And actually, that has changed for me. I have started. My prayers has changed
Mm.
for God to give me energy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard, man. My knees be hurting. You
Yeah.
know, I walked a long way today, and I'm hurting. But
Yeah.
I wonder also how doctors feel, and they know, just like, yeah, this is I know what's up. All right, even as a 6 months out, it's just like they know
They know the
that
prognosis. Yeah.
right. They know, right?
But
So
then why don't we just succumb to that, Gary? Why is it, as people of faith that we hold on to faith if we should give deference to the prognosis?
mhm. I don't know. I can't answer that. One day my faith is absolutely strong.
Yeah.
I and when we run a rebroadcast, I'm sure people will see. It's just like I got tired
Yeah.
of praying for people and still seeing them die.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it
And I mean, that's so real.
right. It's just like I
Yeah.
have not in the last 20 years. Well,
Mm,
I'm going to say one person I know, right?
okay.
And I think I'll try to get her up on here. She had pancreatic cancer, and
Mhm.
then she beat it. But
Mm,
yo, old girl was like mad young. She was like, you know, pancreatic cancer at my age right now is like I might as well just wrap it up,
right,
right?
right.
You know,
Maybe. Yeah.
right,
Maybe.
right. But I don't know. In our faith, I've not heard enough victories. You
Mm,
know, all I hear is financial victories. You know, I was praying that this money would come in, and it came through. Right? Let's face it, we all can kind of like move funds. We got control over it, but there's certain things that are left in God's hands
yeah, yeah.
that it would be an opportune time for our faith to be like renewed. It's like
Yeah,
old girl had stage 4 cancer. She was about to die. She's 61. And then
yeah,
she lived for another 15 years. And I'm not like, and she lived till like she was 80. And I'm not talking about like hobbling. You know, of course you're gonna go to change your diet and all that kind of stuff like that. You know,
right.
looking radiant and whatever. And
Mhm.
I don't know if that story's told enough.
And that, I mean, that's very powerful what you said, is the stories are not being told. You're
Mhm.
not hearing it, right? Like we get
Mhm.
excited for immediate gratification, but it's
Mhm.
those long-term toiling, sorts of
Mhm.
scenarios that I don't know if maybe shame is associated with it. I know, and you would know this too, Gary, right? We talk to our clients and we talk about them being honest, right? Like honesty is going to be that one thing that assists us in being able to aid you in reaching
Mhm.
goals, right? The markers that you're trying to reach. But if you're
Mhm.
honest about what's going on, then we're gonna miss out on some pieces to this puzzle. And I think additionally in our physical health, that there's a lot of times when those questions are asked, right, by our primary care physician to be able to assist us and aid us in our health, we're not disclosing. Because I believe that there's some guilt, there's some shame that is associated
Definitely that.
with it. And it may be that, we got to be honest, in the Adventist faith, we have been reared almost to show up with a measure of perfection,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, yep. Hmm.
Sabbath
Hmm.
as if all is well, right? I sin not. No, yeah, you do. But the reality is that we're not sharing these things because there's a measure of guilt and shame that is associated with our lives in total. And it lets people get close to what, may have brought us to this point of illness. And I think we just need to break that. We really do. We need to be able to
So as we wind down, I think that's also one of the reasons in our faith we do not do legacy or memory programs, right? We'll do a 10-day fast at the beginning of the year, right? And then I was like, all right, you got a 10-day fast. That doesn't mean you can't do it in the fall. Why don't you keep that same energy for the fall, right? It's like
right.
we're back at school, you know, Gary and Leah are sponsoring a 10-day fast to go back to school. You're not hearing about no 10-day fast after once this is true because you're gonna see it and you're gonna laugh, right? Once Black History Month kick in, 10-day fast is done. Right, right. That's done right there. So we're on our own calendar
Yeah.
of what we do. And I'm helping this person. So I'll say this a shameless plug. You don't even know. So we hopefully will get you live here in New York City, May 25th. We're doing our first mental health program, and it's called Recovery and Healing.
Okay.
And you probably saw this. And I just put it out there. I said, "What is your song for complicated grief?"
Yeah, I saw
And
it. Mhm.
Leah the amount of songs that was in there. First of all, there are songs on there that I would never think appealed to certain people. You know, you had the regulars, but
Mm.
then there's some other ones. And I know I'm getting a little chatty, but I just want to get this out. It's
It's
just
okay.
like one person, the two things that one is that the mourning and the grieving of ex
Mm.
husbands and wives, big thing.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
the mourning and grieving of miscarriages
Yeah.
just blew me away, right? So
Yeah.
we don't even touch those.
Mm-mm.
We
No.
just don't. We just don't.
And so what does one do with that pain? There's no space for it.
You can't tell me it's so far, right? So it's just like I hate Nilsa. If Nilsa becomes my ex, there's a time that I hated her guts,
Mhm.
and vice versa, right? I'm married to her. There were days that I hated her guts, right?
Right.
No, it's true, right?
It's natural to
Right, exactly. That's for married folk, right?
right, right,
Like,
right.
you know, understand. But then there's people, kids, hateful words, stealing, even if it physically hurt.
Yeah.
And then, and you know, you have a client, and they don't teach you this in school. They really don't. And it's like, oh, your ex husband died, and you're crying for her. Man, I thought you hated that dude.
Mhm.
Yeah, but there was a time, Gary,
Mhm.
you couldn't say nothing about Lonnie, or there was a time you couldn't say nothing about Gary. About Nilso, just blew me away.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, and then the second was a miscarriage.
yeah,
I because we don't see the baby. There's somebody you love unconditionally that has not been birthed into this world,
yeah, yeah,
and you are not or stillborn. I'll put that
yeah,
in that category too.
yeah,
And it's just like definitely unexpected,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You don't expect your new child
yeah,
to stop moving, start breathing.
yeah,
So so when my man sings and my child is breathing,
yeah,
my child is I you know that, right? So you know that.
yeah, yeah. That you never stop and think about that, right? Like
Hmm.
language is so important.
Hmm.
And it's just so many words that's just out in the atmosphere.
Hmm.
And we don't know how they're resonating, right, in
Hmm.
the body of people when they hear it, right? It might be a
Hmm.
hit for somebody else, and
Hmm.
it may debilitate another,
Hmm.
and you don't know why. And so, that is the complex nature of, living in a place where we all have to live together, right?
Hmm.
It's the only thing I can say is if we only could get to a place where we honor one another and their reality, their
Whew.
individual realities more, then we can coexist a lot better, right? We would
Hmm.
have care, concern. We would give pardons and passes and grace to individuals because we do not know everybody's story. And even, individuals are now getting up on platforms and they're speaking more and they're sharing. They're giving you again what has been most comfortable.
Mm.
Whenever I
Right. Good point.
yeah, I teach individuals to speak, right? And
Hmm.
so when I do that, it may be 8 to 12 weeks where we're just working on this small snippet of, right, that overall situation.
Hmm.
And that is hard, grueling work. That's tears, right? That is
Hmm.
I remember the last, conference we did here in Detroit. Um, there was a young woman who was giving her trauma story. And I began to notice in her body, like the distress was coming up. I had to give her some time off. I said,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, right.
and that's what I mean when I say care about another, right? Do you see
Hmm.
me? Right? I
Hmm.
just did a training. See you, see me, see me, see you. Like, if
Hmm.
we acknowledge the realities of everyone that's around us, we can definitely give individuals more grace and we would
Hmm.
have less of, infighting,
Hmm.
as well as outside, fighting as well. But yeah, we got a
Hmm.
lot of work to do.
Yeah, when there's work to do and you do the work, we create a space uh, for income, which is great, but we also create a space for healing
Yeah,
that people um, has not explored.
yeah.
So I'll end with this. There was a Seventh Day Adventist pastor who became president, uh, and he died last year around this time.
Yeah.
Hmm. Uh, I, his name is Daniel Honore. Mhm. Very popular president.
Yeah.
I think he filled out both of his terms.
Okay.
And last year, a very kind guy. I wasn't in the mix.
Mhm.
We're in, but I'm not as in as Patrick and Paul, who knows him. I remember one day I was up at the camp meeting and we sat down and talked about the Patriots. Very engaging guy, what have you.
Mhm.
Uh, and then, as you know, President, he had his detractors, what have you. So I
Mhm.
remember Pat took a picture of him
Mhm.
2 weeks prior to his sudden death.
Mm.
That he became the president of the Minnesota Conference,
Okay.
right? And I don't even have I don't even have a dog in this race, right?
Right.
And I was upset, Leah,
Mhm.
that his time it's only 1 year, right?
Right.
Nobody said nothing, right? And I think my ears to the ground on what's going on in the Adventist church, right? It
Mhm.
may be in California or Seattle, it may be a little bit out or
Mhm.
right there, but I hear something that's in Ypsilanti or in Chicago or even Tennessee or central states, right? You
Right.
kind of get an idea of what's going on in the Black Adventist church. And
Yeah.
then, I heard nothing, absolutely nothing. And I
Wow.
told Pat, it's a year that Honore died. It's just, they had the youth explosion here at Atlantic Union. Nothing said. And
Wow.
he so I think at the end of the day, for
Yeah.
human beings, and I think part of my life work is, and I'm working with somebody with this, part of my life work is your legacy.
Yeah.
All right. Because a man did something and he left something behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I'm not trying to say that it has to be Dr. King's birthday, but it's a year and you're trying to fade him out
Already.
already.
Mhm.
Right. And somewhere along the line, we were taught that.
Yeah, well, I mean, avoidance is definitely a part of managing your trauma, right?
Right. Right.
So it may be that it's a painful reality,
Mm.
and so it's easier to act as if it never existed.
Mm.
Um, because to bring it up, it again, when we talked
Mm.
about that confusion of death,
Mhm.
um, he's a staple,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
He's a staple to have made it to that level, that tier within the SDA,
Mhm.
conferences. And
Mhm.
so it may be too much. It may be too soon, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and then you have to worry about getting the permissions of others, right? The family members. Do they even want their loved
Right.
one's name
Right.
spoken of? So
Right.
there's
Right. That's true.
areas to this that has to be covered.
Mm.
But as I was saying earlier, about the MLK celebration we had today. We were talking about activating um, equity within justice, right? And so,
Mhm.
we have to be the ones to take up some charges to make these things take place.
Mhm.
As we notice, we do,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's that.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
can't expect for everybody to have the same level of emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
and care and compassion. I think some of us have been birthed to do this sort of work and to kind
Mhm.
of wave the flags to say, "Hey, let's
Mhm.
do in remembrance," right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, we have to take up those charges, pick up those mantles.
All
Yeah.
right. Last words. First of all, thank you for coming on. I
No,
always, always appreciate you.
yeah.
I think our audience always enjoys two clinicians speaking their reality of what's happening. I know you're tired as heck, and so am I. My bed is calling me right over there, right? And oh, Antoinette was on today, so I think what's going to happen, and you're always invited to come back, Leah.
Thank you. Thank
As I always say, and I always keep it real. There's always money in the budget for Leah Mills treatment.
you.
Always, especially especially the fact that I know that you're going to burn yourself in Mexico or Florida.
Look, laid out,
Wow,
roasted.
right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
This is going to happen one day. Me and Nilsa we're going to go someplace, Panama, the Bahamas, quick trip, and I'm going to be on the beach and be like, "Girl, is that you?" I said, "Gary." You're gonna be like, "Gary, I know better. Ain't nobody that loves the sun like Gary and Nilsa Graham.
Really?
And
I
maybe
know.
you
I've been
too.
seeing you post those pictures. I see you inching back on the plane.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah.
I'm
Okay,
with
it's
it.
in there. But we're so happy to hear you. So I'm here to announce that when we do the replay, I'm going to work on it diligently. So I think what we'll do is I'll keep the 8 o'clock hour for the group. Antoinette will like this. And after the group at 9 o'clock,
Have a chat.
have a chat like we do right here and
Okay.
just speak. This is what we spoke on tonight. What were your thoughts? Those who don't want us to talk about certain things, they don't talk about certain things because this is what we do. And I often think about what's going on. And I think one night you and I should just have a chat about Lonnie and Nilsa, how much they really pour into us.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, and you see them behind the scenes, and they just allow us to be great at what we do.
I say it
So,
all the time, Gary.
mhm, mhm,
Oh, I mean, it's real. I
mhm,
was doing a presentation, a community gathering sort of
mhm,
space, and he was sitting there, and I just looked over, and I was so grateful
mhm,
that
mhm,
he allows for me to do what it is that God has
mhm,
called me to do.
mhm,
He knows that whatever I do, I'll go hard in the paint. So
mhm.
he has.
Yes. See that basketball in the paint, not from 3-point land, in the
No,
paint.
I'm down low. I'm down.
Right. I appreciate the download game. Ain't no problem with that. Right.
But no, like they are extremely supportive and they deserve, right? Their
Mhm,
flowers, their medal, whatever it is, the
mhm,
accolades of
mhm,
support. And I think that it's a great model for other couples, right? Is
mhm,
to look at exactly what their spouses are giving up time,
mhm, mhm,
affection, all of that for
mhm,
the work in which your spouse does. So yeah,
mhm,
I love it. Love it.
mhm. All right. I think my last words is find your energy and find your rest. Find your recurring rest.
Yeah.
God has given us Sabbath,
Yeah.
right? And as much as I love the Sabbath, I
Mhm.
think we need to give ourselves an internal Sabbath.
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So,
You know, you got to flush that out a bit more.
well, yeah, I'm not going to put no cliffhangers on it. Like an internal Sabbath, like you cannot get energy without rest.
Yeah.
Absolutely not, right? And sometimes I will hire a driver to drive me to multiple spaces so
Hmm.
I can keep my energy. I'm getting old now, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I do not we have adult children or semi-adult children. I'm not going to fight you. You just go, just go right ahead,
Right. Right.
right? Just go right ahead.
Mhm.
But the most important thing I've learned at 55 is to let it go,
Yeah.
right? Because even if you are right and you challenge the wrong and show the right,
Mm.
it's not going to change.
Yeah.
So just let it go. Keep it for something where somebody needed it. And I saw that tonight when I talked to these people, and they were like, I just said to them, and when I say things like, I heard about your situation, I told my wife about the truck and whatever, and I said, I cannot imagine working with somebody for 20 years and losing them. Those are real words that you say to people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yet there's real words with people. So in fleshing all of that out is that you need to be intentional about going to bed early, and you need to be intentional about staying in the bed too long.
Mm.
So let me kind of like break that down. So like I know I got 1,000 things to do,
Yeah.
right? But if I stay up till 11 o'clock, uh I will not be productive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and I say this, I'm gonna go brush my teeth, I'm gonna take my bath,
Right.
and then I'm gonna go to bed early.
Yeah.
But if I get up at 4:30 in the morning because I get up an hour before my alarm clock, doesn't mean it's an indicator for me to stay in the bed and wallow in the bed. And y'all know what I'm talking about, right? I ain't got nothing to do. Yeah, you got something. Get that early start. And when we get
Yeah.
that early start, sometimes that's the kickstart or the prayer of energy that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Because God is trying to shift you into a space for you to operate on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I
that's
love that.
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, uh, hope to have you soon. I'll reach out to you and keep your eyes on. I'll try to repeat this hopefully on Friday night. And we appreciate you. Go blue. Uh, go Lions until you play the
Yes.
until you play the Ravens.
Okay. Come on
Right.
now. Come
Yeah.
on.
The Ravens.
Mm.
And just work hard, and I mean this. If you need anybody to come and speak to your audience, Leah Moore does that. you know I used to think that I does that. That's not my thing. That's Leah's thing. She'll talk to your audience and give lectures and behind the scenes or what have you. And if you need anybody for consulting, I am your guy. I deal with boys. That's my specialty. I deal with administration on how to work your consulting behind the scene, and I deal with death and complicated grief. This is Gary, and that's Leah, the Wolverine and the Ambassador. Right? We'll
Love it.
talk.
Love it.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later.